Oh, there we go. Hey everybody, welcome to Football Sucks and Everything is Terrible. I'm your host, Ted Glover. With me is my partners in crime, Drew Bunning, my co-host from Vikings Report with Drew and Ted, and Christopher Gates, the founder, lead blogger, and numero uno honcho over at the SB Nation Minnesota Vikings website, the Daily Norseman, dailynorseman.com. The Vikings drop a tough one in the playoffs. Their season's over. Lose 31-24 at home to the Giants. I don't know. That was just about the worst performance the defense has played all year, and that's saying something considering how many bad games they've had this year. Chris.
There was a famous quote by Joe Judge, who used to coach the New York Giants, ironically enough, and he was asked about his job security at a press conference once, and he told the media that I'll be the coach of this team as long as my key card allows me into the building. Ed Donatell's key card needs to be activated. It's deactivated. It's 6:55 now. That thing needs to be deactivated by 7. I mean, Jesus. What I don't know what this defense was doing all year, but I mean, they went out and they made another quarterback look like the second coming of Peyton Manning / Michael Vick kind of rolled into one player, and it was the worst possible time for it. And I know people are going to talk about the last series and the last play throwing short of the sticks, but there's no way you could put this game on the offense. I mean, the defense was just awful all game long, and they were terrible.
They were. Drew, welcome. Thanks everybody that's in the chat room right now. But Drew, so your initial thoughts on this game? It's a tough day.
You're muted, Drew.
Drew, unmute your mic. Hey, Chris, we'll go back to you.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
I'm not prepared, but I said Chris started off with a quote from Joe Judge. I will back that up with a quote from Joe Jackson, the great Joe Jackson. Donatell needs to be stepping out. Step him out. He should be. We got a lot to go over with this team tonight, but you can only go to the well playing this strategy and only win somebody that's going to bite you. We talked about it all year, man.
Yep.
We talked about it all year, and one of these times they're not going to get it done, and they didn't get it done at the end of the drive. But you can't, it's going to happen to you. You're not going to live long with playing this kind of strategy, guys. You're not.
And not only that defense, which was terrible. And look, let's not give them any credit, because if Darius Slayton catches that ball on 3rd and 8 or whatever it was towards the end of the game,
it's over.
He's still running, and the offense doesn't have a chance to even take the field again. I'm still confused by that last call on 4th and 8. Your season is on the line. It's win or go home, and you throw 3 yards. I don't. Somebody explain that. Explain that to me, because I'm obviously stupid, because that just seems like a dumb play to me.
There were so many dumb plays. I mean, we can get into all sorts of dumb stuff that this team did starting from the first quarter onwards, but I don't even know what to say. There's just a lot of stuff that I don't get about tonight, and we're gonna talk about all of it. So,
Ted, I don't understand the call. You're right. You got to go for the sticks on 4th down. All that's correct, but I'm going to say, without Kirk Cousins, we're not even in this game. That guy made a ton of passes tonight, being hit in the pocket, standing in the pocket, taking hits and completing passes. But I don't get that last 4th and 8. But I don't know if he saved us. He saved us 2nd, 3rd quarter. So
KJ Osborne had a big drop on that 3rd down, which would have been a 1st down. It hit him right in the chest. And once again, the New York Giants offense is not the 98 Vikings or some of their great offenses they had in the 80s. It's Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, and that's really about it. I mean, they're not a team that is going to play basketball on grass, as former Purdue coach Joe Tiller liked to used to call his offense. Yet it looked like it again today. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings could not get off the field on 3rd down. Their soft cover 2 shell, whatever the hell it is they call it, cover 4, sucks. You saw the age come out in guys like Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, Patrick Peterson, Zadarius Smith. All those guys got old at once today, it felt like, Drew.
Yeah, it did. And I think we should get into, after we kind of give the synopsis of the game, maybe we should get into what to do for the defense next year or the offense next year. We'll use up some of the show later for that, if it's okay with you guys, because there's some ideas I would have. But all in all, I'm going to tell you something. They just played on Christmas Eve, guys. Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka prepared a lot more for this game plan than the Vikings did. We talked about it, Ted, in our preview. Barkley out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
And number 18, Barkley caught 8 passes for 49 the first time. They didn't compensate for him this time. But when you say all they have is really Daniel Jones and Barkley, you're right, Ted. But what goes on top of that is the creativity and how you use them. That's where the expertise comes in. Look at all the misdirection all day. Barkley on the quick screen. They had great play calling. The Giants called a really good game today offensively. The Vikings, I mean, it wasn't as bad as usual, and they let it hang a little bit, but the Giants were better.
Yeah, they were. It looked it started off like it was going to be a barber. It turned out to be a really good game. Vikings get the ball, go down 12 plays, 75 yards, score a touchdown. Giants answer 5 plays, 75 yards, score a touchdown. Saquon Barkley. And I mean, God, they were just that. And that was just foreshadowing of things to come. I mean, Giants wide receivers were running wide open in the secondary all day.
Oh, those crossing routes. What the hell are you doing?
And the thing that bugged me is the Vikings did nothing to try and counter those at all. Nothing.
Ed Donatel hasn't done anything to counter anything all year. We've mentioned this almost every week. I mean, it's the same defense, play your shell or whatever, and you're doing that and you're still getting killed. I mean, do something different. Do anything different. I mean, God, what do you have to do here?
Yeah. So it sort of felt to me after those 2 drives like first team to punt loses, and that's kind of what ended up happening. Because on the next drive, the Vikings go 3 and out, and they run this stupid. It was like 3rd and 2, and they run this stupid trick play. Kirk throws it to Justin Jefferson, who throws it back to Kirk, and the Giants sniffed that out right away. They were waiting for it, and they punted. Kirk lost 2 yards because he just had no chance. He had 2 guys right on him as soon as he got the ball. And then the Giants go 4 plays, 81 yards. It's 14-7. And I don't think the Vikings led the game again after that. They did not.
No,
they tied it up.
They got it back to
24,
even,
but the Giants took the lead and never relinquished it from there. And they went up 17-7. Vikings got a touchdown at the end of the half to make it 17-14. And so here's the thing. It was, there was 45 seconds left. They're down 17-14. And one thing towards the end of the half that I thought was telling is the Vikings had 2 timeouts, and Kevin O'Connell did not use any of his timeouts to try and stop the clock and maybe get the ball back and go for maybe a quick drive to get a field goal. Drew, it seemed like he knew what was going on with the defense today.
Yeah, he's got some clock management skills to work on during the offseason and maybe starting next year, because that one drive when we got down, it was 50 seconds left or something.
Mm-hmm.
Osborne's touchdown. The play before that, he stopped the clock, and I'm thinking, what the hell are you stopping the clock for? You don't want to stop the clock there and give the Giants more really dumb timeout.
Yeah,
you're inside the 10. You're only going to have 3 plays left. Use the 57 seconds up, and then whatever happens. But this must be disheartening for Kevin O'Connell. He had a great season, first year as head coach. It seems like Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell had a bunch of great calls this year, and the only bad one they had was that defensive coordinator hire. Because for as much as they did good this year, that was a hit. That was a miss. But you got it. They did really well. But these games, this game went like the last 10 or 12 guys, and pretty soon you're not going to get it done. Pretty soon you're going to get 4th down, turn it over. It's going to happen. You got to be able to. I'm watching the game and I'm thinking, Ted and Chris, I'm looking at Toots going, if we could play any kind of defense, we'd kick people's asses.
Yeah.
We'd win games, but we can't play defense. So
no, they can't. And and we talked about how good Kirk and TJ Hawkinson have been since the Hawkinson trade.
Mm-hmm.
I think, sadly, the only thing that people are going to remember, though, is that 4th and 8 throw to Hawkinson for only 3 yards. I just for as much as people want to bag on Kirk, that is a perfect excuse and opportunity to do just that.
Sure.
It is, because Cousins had a really good game. I mean, once again, he stood in the pocket and got his butt kicked and got hit a bunch of times. He was 31 of 39 for 273 yards. And like you said, all anybody is going to talk about now is that last throw, because I mean, I didn't see the rest of the routes or anything like that. I'm not sure, if there was anyone open further down, but I mean, that he had a pretty good season. He had a pretty good game today, but yeah, like you said, that's all anybody's going to talk about is that last throw.
It was a bad decision. What about the 9-time Dexter Lawrence was up his ass? Why don't we talk about that? Why can't they block that guy? That guy was in the backfield all day, and they didn't adjust to stopping him. No. I mean, the 4th and 8 call. I mean, you got to launch it or do something. You can't just throw. Everybody knows that. I'm sure it's going to get ripped on, but every time they snapped the ball, Lawrence was in there.
Yeah, it was just not a good day. Yeah, man, 31-24. Giants win. Look, folks, we got, let's see. Let me see how many people we got here. We got 141 people in the chat room. I think we're going to give away a prize this week anyways. All you got to do is just make a comment in the live chat. Say hi or whatever. You're entered. Fire Donatel, which is what everybody's saying.
Mm-hmm.
In the chat room. You'll be entered at the end of the show. Ruby's going to spin the wheel. We'll give away a prize. So, go ahead, Chris.
You touched on it briefly, that 3rd and 1 call with the trick play. I don't know what the play design was on that one, but Jefferson threw that ball back to Cousins. There was nobody out there blocking for him. I don't know what they expected. That's like a play you run down on the goal line, not at midfield, a 3rd and 1. I think Cousins on the first drive, he went 7 for 7. So I think he hadn't thrown any completion yet. If you want to get 1 yard, do something to get 1 yard. Don't run the stupid cutesy trick plays at midfield when you need to get 1 yard. Just get the freaking 1 yard, move the sticks, and just move on. I can't even verbalize how dumb that play call was. That was terrible.
It was ridiculous. It really was. I mean, you've got, and to that point in the game, the Vikings had been moving the ball very well on the ground. I think you get maybe a yard and a half there. If you don't get the first down, it sets you up for a 4th and short. Quarterback sneak, probably gets the first down, convert, and keep going. And that play call, I just thought was just completely idiotic.
Yeah, they hit us with 4 or 5 of those a game. But what if the defense was better? Do you think the Vikings win that game? I do. I think they just
absolutely
do. They let them drive down the field. It's, Kafka, you guys got to admit, he ran a lot of good plays for the Giants. I couldn't even tell what they were going to do. They were all over the place.
Here's a summary of the Giants' drives today. 5 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 4 plays, 81 yards, touchdown. 20 plays, 85 yards, 11 minutes, field goal, and then end a half. Second half, 6 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. A punt, and then 12 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. Another punt, and then end a game. I think the only film Ed Donatel watches is porn, because the Vikings defense completely got their tits licked all day today. All day.
Well,
all day.
Should have started the show with that.
I don't even have a witty comeback for that one. I mean,
that about says it all. I mean,
I think so.
432 yards allowed, Ted. Another 400-yard game. I mean, what the? I don't even know what kind of defense they're running, Chris Gates. I don't. We'll get into it when we start talking about what we're supposed to do next year. But God, it's just.
I think Ted is onto something here, because if Ed Donatel would have watched anything to prepare for this game, he would have known that if you give Daniel Jones an opportunity to run, he can run the football. I mean, dude had I don't know how many yards rushing he had today. He had
80.
78 rushing yards. He was their leading rusher. 78 yards on 17 carries.
That guy was killing us.
And he was pulling it down. He was running. I mean, and like you said, Kendricks was playing like he had cement shoes on. Jordan Hicks wasn't going to catch. We could have had Brian Asamoah watching him, but he got knocked out with a concussion during the game. It's like they didn't have any idea that Daniel Jones is a mobile quarterback that can run the football if you give him the opportunity, and that killed this team as much as anything else did.
Yeah, I don't get what the Vikings did this week in preparing for the Giants. Maybe they just thought,
I don't either.
What they did last week, 3 weeks ago on Christmas Eve, was going to work this week. On offense, I thought it did, but the exact same thing the Giants did a few weeks ago is the exact same thing they did today, and the Vikings had no answer for it. And that's the thing that is most frustrating to me. If they had won on a fluke play or something, that's one thing. But the Giants said, okay, this is what worked well last time. This is what we're going to do again, and we're going to try and make the Vikings stop it. And they couldn't.
They did. They played better than the Christmas Eve game the Giants did.
They
prepared better. They had better play calls. And the thing that's really crushing about the Vikings, guys, is it's 3rd and 4. And Jones throws it out in the flat, and we got it read perfectly for a 4-yard loss. But it's missed tackle, first down. For fuck's sake!
Yeah.
Ugh!
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, the Vikings. So even if the Vikings did dial up the right call on defense, the few times they did today, they're just a fundamentally bad defense. I mean, they cannot tackle. Mm-hmm. They're not good at contain on the edge. They're not good in their gap discipline. And when they make contact, most of the first tackles that guys are trying to make are going to be broken. It's been a constant theme all year. And I mean, look, I don't think the Vikings were going to go to the Super Bowl, but had they beaten the Giants today, which they had every chance to win, they could have won this game if the defense had made a couple stops. They were going to get smoked by the 49ers next week with the way this defense has played today.
Yeah, the defense. You have that great opening first drive, Chris and Ted. Mm-hmm. You drive it down the field, you take the lead. If they hold the Giants on a 3-and-out right there, the crowd's going to be even more into it. but they don't. They just let him drive down the field and tie it.
Yep.
That whole momentum slid right down the crack of their asses, and it was done. I mean, I
want to
ahead.
kind of move away from the defense for a second because Stuart Anderson has pointed something out in the comments here in the
Stuart
chat. We talked last week during the Bears game about how the Vikings were giving Alexander Mattison some opportunities to carry the football, giving him the ball down on the goal line and whatnot. Take a stab at how many carries Alexander Mattison had this afternoon.
I don't believe he had one.
No, he had 0 carries today. He did not carry the ball one time. I think he had one. He might have had one catch, but he had 1 reception for 2 yards. That's it. I mean, I don't think Cook or Madison is going to be back with this team next year because Cook is going to be too expensive and somebody's going to throw enough money at Madison to be the frontline guy somewhere else. But, you do something to change things up a little bit. I mean, that third and 1 where they called the trick play, that could have been an Alexander Mattison play because he's kind of the short yardage guy at this point. I just don't get giving him 0 carries in this one.
Yeah, I don't either. So look, Vikes lose a tough one, 31-24. They are bounced out of the playoffs. We got 135 people watching. Ruby is monitoring the chat room. Just go ahead and make a comment, say hi, and you'll be entered to win a prize. We'll do the drawing at the end of the show. Ruby's going to spin the Toonce's Wheel
of Destiny. to kind of go off what Chris was saying right there, piggyback off it a little bit. What about last week? All those cool plays with Ham, those passes out of the backfield we were doing. That worked last week. Worked like 3 or 4 times. Remember those passes that CJ didn't do any of that today?
No.
So I was thinking between that and not using Madison, you don't want to use the people that have been doing well last week. I don't get it.
I'm having a hard time understanding a lot of what the Vikings did today. Offensively, I thought they were pretty good, but they had a couple boneheaded plays. And so now we head into the offseason. Last year at this time, the Vikings were searching for a coach and GM. They hired, obviously, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah as GM and Kevin O'Connell as the coach. And they talked about this competitive rebuild that the Vikings were going to undergo. They thought last year they had a roster to be competitive. Turned out to be true. They did. They won the division, won 13 games, made the playoffs, yada, yada, yada. It kind of feels like the rebuild part of this competitive rebuild is about to hit this offseason. We've talked about guys like Kendricks and Smith and Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Where do you see this going in the offseason to start, Chris?
I think this is going to be a vastly different football team next season. I mean, you talked about Alexander Mattison, Dalvin Cook. I don't think Adam Thielen's back with this team next year. Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, these guys that, when the Vikings went through the coach hiring process last year, they waited and waited for the Rams season to be done so that they could bring Kevin O'Connell in. They were willing to wait for him because the league rules say that they couldn't officially make him the head coach until after the Super Bowl was over, or until the Rams got knocked out of the playoffs, whichever the phrasing is. And because of that, they kind of had to, I think someone mentioned something along these lines in the chat here. They kind of had to wait and kind of pick up what was left over as far as coordinators and stuff were concerned, which might explain like the Donatel hire. I think that now they're going to be able to kind of get their off-season program in swing a little bit earlier. I mean, there's probably going to be guys fired before too much longer that are going to be able to come in and be the new offensive or defensive coordinator and what have you. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of high-priced guys that aren't going to be here anymore. And I kind of think next season might be a little rough for this team. I mean, they're still going to have Cousins, still going to have Hawkinson, still going to have Justin Jefferson, a couple of guys on the defensive side. Harrison Phillips is still going to be here. But yeah, like you said, I think the rebuild part of the competitive rebuild, this was the competitive year, and now we're getting into the rebuild portion of it. And now Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, You have to remember that when the Vikings went through last year's draft, Adolfo-Mensa was still basically working with Rick Spielman's staff and Rick Spielman's people. And after the draft, they dismissed a bunch of those guys, and Adolfo-Mensa was able to hire his own people. So now he's going to have people that are on the same page as he is and be able to kind of install the philosophy that him and O'Connell want to get in here a little more readily than they were. But yeah, I don't know if next year is going to be as much fun as this year was.
Drew, what do you think? First of all, was this season successful? You know, I rattled off the 13-4 one.
Yes, it was.
People in the chat are saying it's not. It's an abject failure because they should have, with this kind of record and bringing everybody back, they should have at least made the divisional round. Do you feel that way? And the season's a failure because of not getting that far, or what?
Everybody thought back in July, August, right when the thing was getting ready to kick off, the Vikings get back to the playoff and win the division. That's good for O'Connell. You can't change now. That was everybody's thought back then, and that's what they achieved. That's what they got. Exciting team. I mean, 13-4 is good for the. I mean, I would have been happy with that. When you talked to me back summer about it, I didn't expect that. Mm-hmm. I'm happy with the season. I think they did. I mean, they got a lot to look forward to next year. They went from 8-9 to 13-4, and I think when it comes to this team offensively, you got a few things to tweak. They still need offensive line work, guys. Their offensive line is soft. They're not physical. Your offensive line has to be physical, and they have to have a Mick Tingelhoff, Ron Yeri type of attitude. They don't have that. They haven't had that in years up there up front. And there's something to do with Cook. He's lost a little bit of explosiveness, but offensively, it's a lot less to fix than defense. Defense, you got to fire Donatel by midnight tonight. That should already have happened. You don't wait any longer. It's 9:00 Eastern. He should be gone by midnight. Then you're on the search for a defensive coordinator, but you're sitting in a room with a new coordinator and you're breaking the whole defense down. Is it 3-4 good? Is that what we wanted to do? I don't think they were set up to do that the whole season because they didn't have enough pressure up the middle up front. What scheme are we going to run? Who's going to be the defensive coordinator? What are we going to do with all these players? Like you mentioned, Ted, there's going to be a lot of changes over there. There's a complete rebuild on the defensive side. And I don't know when you get complete rebuilds on one side or the other of the ball, like Chris said, don't be surprised if we struggle next year because the defense didn't work. And like a lot of people say, and I've said, is our defense personnel wise, roster wise, guys, is it really that bad? Seems like we have good players.
The defense?
You have a few good players, but are they running out of gas or is the defense as weak as what the starters say they are? I mean,
I think so. Now they are. Yeah. 3 years ago, I thought they had very good personnel. They just look.
How do we have 51 sacks last year without Zadarius Smith or Hunter? This year we got 40.
Yeah.
We got 40. We were second in the league last year in sacks without those two guys.
Zero pressure, man. The Vikings are in it and unable to bring consistent pressure.
You got to break the whole scheme down, Ted, and try to come up with something new. I mean, the 3-4 didn't work.
So let's go. Let's play a game. We'll go play a little bit of a game on defense here. We'll start on defense, and I'll give you a player's name, and you tell me if he's back next year or not.
Okay.
Drew, Danielle Hunter, is he back or not back?
Yes.
Chris?
I think so.
Harrison Phillips, Dalvin Tomlinson. Well, let's go down. I think Phillips, they just signed a contract. He'll be back. Dalvin Tomlinson, return or no?
I'd like to see him back, but he had a good enough season this year where he's probably gonna, and he's still young enough where he could get another big contract somewhere else. So unfortunately, I don't think he's back.
I'd love to have him back, but I'm not going to be bummed if he isn't because we're going to grab somebody in the draft pretty high on the D line.
Zadarius Smith, Drew, back or not back?
Man, I would have 2 months ago said for sure come back. I'm not so certain now. I'm not so certain. No, I'm going to say no.
Chris, Jordan Hicks. No, you go back. Zadarius Smith. Chris, you think he's going to be back or not?
I'm not sure how his contract is structured. I know that they said that when he signed a 3-year deal, but it was essentially a 1-year deal. I don't know if the option to avoid that is the team's option or his option, but I got a feeling, yeah, I kind of agree with Drew. If you'd have based it on the first 2 months of the season, then yeah, definitely. But he won that Defensive Player of the Month award 1 month, and after that, he just really kind of disappeared. So
Yeah.
I would say no.
Jordan Hicks, yes or no? Chris?
No, I don't think so.
Drew?
Great tackler, but he's not fast enough.
Eric Kendricks? Drew?
No.
Chris?
No, I think he's kind of coasting on reputation at this point. He's not what he was a couple of years ago.
He's got a very easy cap number. I think he is definitely going to be a guy.
I will say
that leaves. Go ahead, Drew.
I will say if Hicks was playing the way he plays, if he was a 70s linebacker, he'd have been awesome because they didn't have the guys running across the field all the time. But he's a really good tackler. But I don't think either of those linebackers, which also points to you have to learn it all over again.
Yeah.
Ted, what do you think about Kendricks?
He's gone. He's obviously slower. I think he's one of those guys that he knows what he needs to do. He knows where he needs to be. He just can't get there now.
You know what was telling? Probably the biggest play of the game was that they snapped it. The defensive end ran in, and Daniel Jones threw it to Saquon Barkley, and it took like 12 yards for Kendricks to catch him.
Yeah.
5 years ago, Barkley would have got smacked right when he caught it.
Yep.
So
let's see. Duke Shelley, bring him back. I think.
Shit,
He better be back. Damn.
Patrick Peterson, Chris.
That's a tough one because he had kind of a renaissance this year, but then he kind of slowed down at the end of the year too. So I'm sure he wants to be back in Minnesota, but I don't see it.
Drew?
Yeah, I don't even know. I'm going to go with what you say, Ted and Chris. I don't know. I think we should move on because he's a little long in the tooth. But
Harrison Smith.
No. I love Harrison Smith. He's one of my favorite Vikings of all time, but yeah, he's
probably
not what he was a few years ago either.
Does he have any trade value at this point?
See, and
I doubt it.
This is what I wonder about with guys like Smith and Hendricks and Z, depending on his contract, and Danielle Hunter. I would keep Hunter. I would bring Danielle Hunter back. But the thing about the NFL is if teams think you're going to release a guy, the trade market pretty much evaporates unless there's some team that really, really wants him and they're not sure they could get him when that player goes to free agency after they're released. And at that case, then you're getting a late round pick of 5 if you're lucky. I think a 6 is probably more realistic. I think they might be able to get something for Dalvin Cook, though. 3rd, 4th, maybe. I don't know. Chris, do you think there's a trade market out there for Dalvin Cook with that contract?
I mean, there might be if you can get multiple teams interested in him, but like we've said a few times before this season, this is the danger of giving a running back in the National Football League a big second contract because of all the positions in the NFL, the shelf life for a running back is probably the shortest. And once you get to a running back's career where you're in like year 6, year 7, there's not a lot of tread left on the tires. They're starting to slow down. I think that's the point that Cook's at right now. I mean, he might be able to get 1 or maybe 2 more good seasons, but that contract is pretty prohibitive. You're probably not going to get a heck of a lot for him if you can trade him either.
Drew, do you think there's a trade market for Dalvin out there or not?
Well, I think the trade market was last year for him. I think they've lost a lot of leverage by other GMs. Look at how these guys play. And Cook had a couple long runs this year, very key runs against Buffalo. And he had another long one against somebody else. I can't remember who it was, but
yeah, the long screen pass in the Indy game.
Yeah. So he's made plays like that, but we expect like 20, 25 plays like that out of Dalvin Cook every year. I watched him really closely in this game. He doesn't have that burst going through the line, Chris. He doesn't have it anymore.
No,
he used to blow by those guys, and he has, like I said, he still is a decent back who can play. I mean, but he's lost a step, guys. I mean,
He has. I think Alexander Madison is gone as well. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. CJ Ham, the offense now, back or not, Drew?
Well, since he's been here since 1912, I'm going to say he's coming back too. Yeah, he's coming back, I think. I mean, they should have used him.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris?
Yeah,
Ham coming
I can
back.
agree with that. I mean, I don't know how much value you put on the fullback anymore, but he seems like a solid guy, a guy that they like and whatnot, and he's not super expensive, I don't think. So yeah, I think CJ Ham comes back.
If you don't pay running backs $12 million a year, you don't pay fullbacks $3 million a year.
True.
No, yeah.
He got more money than Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Adam Thielen is a guy everybody's been talking about. You think Thielen comes back next year, Chris?
Not with the money he's scheduled to make. I think his cap number is just ridiculous next year. And yeah, he's no longer wide receiver 2. I think KJ Osborne kind of unseated him for that spot. And so if you figure he's probably the 4th or 5th option behind Jefferson and Osborne and Hawkinson, then yeah, you don't pay that kind of money for a 4th or 5th option. No, he's not back.
Hawkinson's a guy I think they'll be looking to get a contract extension on. Irv, are we done with Irv, or is Irv coming back, Drew?
Oh, Jesus. He doesn't do enough. He's hurt all the time. When he's in there, he drops a lot of passes. He got a touchdown today, but I don't know what Irv Smith's dancing in end zone for. I mean, come on, it's kind of embarrassing, isn't it?
I don't think he's coming back. Chris, do you?
Yeah, we're absolutely done with Irv Smith.
Something we got to remember, guys, for the defense next year: Caleb Evans, Booth, Lewis Seen. We got guys coming back that are already on this team. And you couple that with the draft, we should be able to make a little headway on this defense if we get those guys back and playing. I mean, Seen was supposed to be huge this year. I don't know about Bynum. He's terrible today, but you got to factor in all those players that are on IR or whatever. They're coming back. So
yeah, Seen and Booth will be coming back. When you talked about the draft, the Vikings only have 4 picks in this next draft. First, a 3rd, a 5th, and a 6th. I think the 2nd round pick they gave up in the TJ Hawkins trade, which was a great trade. They should have made it. But if you're going to give up draft picks, you're going to have to pay the piper eventually, and that's going to come in April. I think what's going to happen with the draft, everybody talks about you only have 4 picks. I think what's going to happen is Kwesi is going to do a lot of wheeling and dealing like he did last year. I think he's probably going to trade out of the 1st round. The Vikings should be drafting, 20th, 21st now? I'm not sure how it's going to go.
I think they're going to be, because 19 through 24 is all the teams that lose on wild card weekend. And I don't think any of the teams that are still playing have a better record. So I think they're going to be sitting at 24.
Okay. That makes sense. So that's a spot to really move down, maybe later in the 1st, pick up another 2nd round or 3rd round pick. Who knows?
Perfect position to bring up another corner for 1st round. You guys give me a couple players you don't want to see on the field for the Vikings in uniform or nothing. Guys you can't stand. I'm going to go Rager. I can't stand him.
I'm pretty much done with Jalen Rager. He's one for me.
Yep. We already talked about Irv Smith. He's another one. I'm done with Irv. I don't need to see him again.
Yeah.
Rieger's on that list, definitely. Man.
On defense,
I'm trying to think of a few more, but yeah.
On defense, Cam Bynum just isn't doing it for me.
No.
He
was impressive as a rookie, but
he was, yeah. He'll be back. I mean, he's still only his 2nd year, I think, so he's got 2 years left on his deal.
That getting juked out today by that running back, that was telling. That was bad.
Well, I mean, which player, which time?
No, I mean, Cam Bynum's made splash plays during the season, but overall, I don't know if he's ready to take over Harrison Smith's spot. I mean, he doesn't. But we got Seen coming back. I think Seen's making really good progress at an injury. People said he wouldn't start the opening week or whatever. I think he's going to be back in time, and we all seen what he's a pretty good player.
Yeah, I mean they'll have to.
Didn't we use a draft pick to get Rager in here?
We did.
Yeah,
we used a draft pick to get Ross Blacklock in here too, and he was inactive for the last 7 weeks of the season. Yeah. So
why did we even get that guy?
I don't know. One comment I wanted to point out, because I think Ted's going to get a laugh out of this. Mark Stein saying that CJ Ham is the new Marcus Sherrills, because every year when we used to do our roster predictions for DN, everyone said, okay, this is going to be the year that they finally cut Marcus Sherrills, and he's not going to be And every year Sherrills would make the team, and every year it would be like, boy, I'm happy we have Marcus Sherrills back there returning punts.
We haven't had
and then we'd get to next training camp, it's gonna be like, all right, this is the year they're gonna cut more. It was Twinkies, cockroaches, and Marcus Sherrills are the only things that would survive a nuclear fallout.
And we haven't had a decent punt returner since he left.
No, we sure haven't. Not even close.
All right, we still got about 140 people in the chat room. If you want to be entered to win a prize at the end of the show, just go ahead and make a comment in the live chat. Say hi, say fire Donatel, say whatever. I'll tell you one guy that somebody mentioned in the comments here about being gone is, well, two now I've seen, is Shannon Sullivan and
he's the guy. Yeah, put him in there with Rager
and Jordan Hicks. I just I'm done. I'm done.
Sullivan's bad, guys. He's not the future.
No. I believe the children are the future.
I believe we got to let the children play or whatever. I believe they are the future.
So yeah, look, and we just sort of did this off the cuff exercise to just sort of let you guys know that there is a lot of changes coming for the Vikings. They're hard up against the cap. And Kwesi is gonna be dealing with the mess. This is really the year that he's going to be dealing with the mess that Rick Spielman left him, because guys like Smith and Thielen and Dalvin Cook and Daniil Hunter, who else am I missing? A couple other guys have Eric Kendricks have big money coming due. And Kendricks is the only guy that if they release, they have a minimal dead money cap hit. You know, Thielen and Cook and all those and Harrison Smith and all those guys have a lot of dead money that will hit the cap and will affect them in out years. So it's gonna be a rough off season. I think, look, the Vikings offense is good enough, as we saw this year, to keep the Vikings in games. I mean, they finally kind of stepped up and kept the Vikings in games. And I think that's going to be probably the formula heading into next year as well, just based on how many changes we anticipate for this defense, Drew.
I agree, Ted, but you can't, I don't know how people are down on this season. I mean, they accomplished what we thought they were going to, more than what I thought. I didn't think they would make the play or win the division, but I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, the Vikings are 13-4, but they're going to have a big hole at linebacker. They need a nose tackle. They need a running back, and they probably need a wideout.
And they probably need a center.
All high picks. I mean, how many 13-4 teams have that many holes to fill? They got a lot of work to do. But the fact that they didn't go 7-10 this year, Ted, and stink it up and weren't involved in anything. I mean, look at some of those games they won, dude. That was exciting. I, for one, love the season. I'm pissed that we're one and done, but I am excited for the future.
Yeah, Chris, where are you sitting with this team as we head into this offseason? Yeah, good, bad, indifferent, what?
I mean, I enjoyed the heck out of this season. I mean, I know when we did our preseason predictions, I don't think any of us had them at any more than 10 or 11 wins or something like that. I mean, I don't know if any of us thought they were going to win the division, but this has been a really enjoyable season. I mean, we got got a lot of great memories from this season. We got the Buffalo game, we got the Indy game, all the last minute stuff and whatnot. But yeah, I think next year, unless we hit on a lot of draft picks and Kwesi does all the wheeling and dealing that you've said you think he's going to do, I think next year might be a little rough for this team. But overall, I mean, I'm anxious and interested to see how exactly Kwesi handles the whole thing, because like I said earlier, last year he was basically dealing with Rick Spielman's staff, Rick Spielman's scouts, Rick Spielman's whatever. And now this is going to be the first draft where he can spend the offseason preparing and having powwows and whatever with his people. So everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows what everyone wants to do, and they can get the people in here that want to be, or that can implement exactly what they want to do. So yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it might be rough next season, but I'm excited to see where this is going.
So you talked about and I think we all kind of think it's kind of fire Ed Donatel season. Mm-hmm. So if you fire Donatel, Drew, do you keep the 3-4? Because the Vikings have transitioned their defensive players they drafted last year, like Brian Asamoah, for example, were meant for more of a 3-4 set, and bring another 3-4 guy that runs the same defense, or do you just say chuck it and go back to the 4-3 or something else? A 5-2, a 7-4, a 9-1-1. I don't know.
There's a lot of different changes you could make to the defense, and you could run a lot of different. Run the 46, Ted, as long as they don't spread you out with wide receivers. But I think they got Donatel in here, and he said, "Oh, I can make the 3-4 work." I don't think they've had the personnel all season to make the 3-4 work.
No.
And first off, you look at Bill Cowher. First thing he'll say is Casey Hampton. That's how you run a 3-4. You need a big, gnarly ass stuffer in the middle of the. That's what you need, a Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah.
To run a 3-4. So I'm saying shit can it. Whoever you're going to get in there as a new defensive coordinator, when you sit at that table and start formulating and breaking it down, and this guy we're getting rid of, this guy we're getting rid of. We have our eye on this guy in the draft. We have Asamoah. We have this. We have this. We have this. I think you need to break it all down to the foundation of the whole thing. But I thought they should have switched it up a month ago. Go 4-3. Go with something completely. Go change it. Change it to the 4-3. Let's see where that runs. It couldn't have been any worse than what we had to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
And it's a bunch of these games I've seen Hunter dropping back in coverage, and I'm thinking Hunter should be rushing the quarterback.
Yeah.
Come on, man. So first thing, get rid of Donatel, but they got to be careful on their next hire, and they got to look at the roster and get a guy that says, I can't work with that. There's a lot of good young defensive coordinators out there that are future guys. I think Donatel's a little behind the time.
Chris, so do you keep the same defensive scheme, or if you fire Ed Donatel, or what do you do?
I mean, I think you got to find somebody you can ask. I don't know if you have like a consultant or somebody you can ask that could look at the defense and say, with the personnel we have, what is the best possible thing for us to do? If it's stay with the 3-4, stay with the 3-4. If it's go back to the 4-3, go to the 4-3. But like Drew said, Danielle Hunter spent his first 5 or 6 years in the National Football League as a 4-3, hand on the ground, pass rushing defensive end. And now you want to be like, okay, now you're going to stand up and play outside linebacker and drop into coverage way more than you probably should. That you can't make personnel that don't fit the scheme fit into the scheme. It just doesn't make any sense. And that, like Drew said, I don't think the Vikings have had 3-4 personnel all year. They tried to put a square peg into a round hole, and it just didn't work.
I know Kendricks is not a 3-4 linebacker. No. Eric, from week 1, I said to Ted, even before we started the season, Kendricks is going to suffer at a 3-4 because he's a 4-3 linebacker. That's what he is. So
yeah. So here's the thing. Last night, did you watch the historic comeback by the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Los Angeles Chargers?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of rumors floating that Brandon Staley, the Chargers coach, who really choked that game away with some of his bad decisions and coaching decisions and all that. And even the week before, keeping starters and Mike Williams, I think, got hurt, couldn't play last night.
Staley.
He might get canned. And he's a defensive guy.
Sure.
And he's one of those young wonder kid kind of guys like Kevin O'Connell is. Would you guys be on board with Brandon Staley being named defensive coordinator for the Vikings, Chris?
I absolutely think so. I mean, like we've seen the trend is going towards the younger coaches because they have a different perspective and kind of think outside the box a little bit. I don't want Brandon Staley coaching my team, but I certainly wouldn't mind seeing him as the defensive coordinator if he's going to try to kind of rebuild himself and possibly get another head coaching job. Yeah, I've got no problem with that.
Drew,
I say go for it, Ted.
Yeah,
go for it, because with a name like Staley, you know he's going to have 8 men in the box.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Buried in. No, he's a progressive defensive coordinator, progressive mind. I mean, more modern. I think Donatel's stuck in the Joe Theismann days or something.
It kind of felt like
I would be up for that. Some guys are just better coordinators than your head coaches.
Yeah, and like him and O'Connell seem more kind of guys that would mesh more than a guy like him and Donatel.
Right.
I think Donatel was one of those old mentor type guys. When a head coach first gets his initial head coaching gig, he usually hires a couple guys that have been head coaches in the past or have been in the NFL for years and years to help him sort of feel his way along as he's going. I think Donatel was one of those guys, and now that I think O'Connell has a year under his belt, he has a good idea of what he likes and what he doesn't like, and I think there's going to be a lot of changes, not only on the field, but in the coaching staff as well.
I think part of it was probably that they wanted someone with his experience, but I said they had to wait until after the Super Bowl to be able to hire O'Connell, and Ed Donatel was just kind of what was left. I mean, that's who the Vikings left the bar with at 2 a.m. I mean, that's kind of the way it is. And now, you can go during happy hour and you can do whatever, find someone else. And
KOC had all the offense under control because that's what he is, an offensive coach.
Yeah.
He wanted to turn the defense over to somebody that's had 40 years experience, even though he's been on 19 different teams or whatever.
Yeah. And
he thought if I go for experience, I won't have to make any calls on defense. It's all taken care of by him. I know what O'Connell was thinking, and you can't really blame him for wanting to have the experience. But
you cannot fault that line of thinking. No, absolutely.
No, and I think that's where he came from to begin with. Let me ask you guys something. Give me some good and bad on O'Connell. What do you want to see him improve in, and what do you think he does really well?
I'd like to see him be more
wait, for the chat people too. Chat people can throw in their comments on that.
I'd like to see him be more aggressive and quit being cute when he doesn't need to be cute. Like that toss, to Jefferson and then back to Kirk on third down. Yeah, look, it was 3rd and 2, man. You've got a really good running back. You got your starting center back. You got a good left side of your line in Cleveland and Darisaw. I thought they played pretty well all day. Look, you could have gotten at least a yard there if off tackle. If not, just do 2 sneaks and get a first down. The cute stuff, I think you need to cut down on somewhat. That's my biggest beef with Kevin O'Connell in year 1.
I mean, some of the positive things I think he did, though. I mean, we saw the Mike Zimmer offense. It was 2 tight ends, fullback, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, whatever. Well, Kevin O'Connell came in here and, he wanted to go 3 wide receivers. I mean, he wanted to put his best personnel out there on the field, and he did that. I mean, and he got Hawkinson, which is the kind of tight end that, the offense that he wants to run needs to function. And, I think O'Connell did a much better job of getting his best personnel on the field more frequently on offense than Mike Zimmer did, obviously. But yeah, I think that's one of the big positives from him.
What about you, Drew?
I think he learned a lot the first season. I mean, the Donatel thing I think he knew Donatel was gone a month ago, but I think aggressiveness, Ted, being aggressive, creative, but within the parameters of moving the offense with what you got with Cousins because he's not mobile. Today, when they got down to the 6-yard line, guys, and it was 1st and goal, I looked at Toots and I said, this is where you throw it. First down. The Vikings have not done it all. This is where you throw it. And he threw it. That pass to JJ, and he didn't. He thought we got in, but it was short or whatever. That was the play. That's the mindset he has to be in. And I thought when that happened today, we're rolling. We're rolling on offense. And then there was still seemed too conservative to me, but his job to come in here the first year, get us relevant, get the gloom out of here, and try to win the NFC North. Did it all.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, is anybody really surprised we went 1 and done? Did you really think we were dominant enough to go deep into the play? I didn't. I'm not surprised we lost. I'm not.
I'm not surprised they lost, but I'm was hoping they could have at least made it to the divisional round. The Giants I thought, at home, I thought that they should have beat the Giants. Chris.
Yeah, I thought they were going to win today, but they didn't, and well, that's about all.
It's too much chasing the score. Why are we always behind, guys? We're always behind.
Yeah,
come on, dude.
That's the way it goes. All right, we are quickly approaching 1 hour of showtime. Ruby, are you there? And good afternoon. If you are you ready to spin your wheel of Toonce's destiny?
I am ready.
Yeah, I hear the birds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. I talked too much tonight.
No, you're good.
Had a lot on my mind.
All right. We have a lot of people on the wheel today.
Damn.
Here we go.
Wow.
There
Looks
we
like
go.
What did
Paris.
you do?
Looks like Paris Hilton's Black Book. Roll.
Can you hear
And
it?
it rotates that quickly too.
Charlie Tap.
Charlie Tap. That sounds
Tap
like
it
a
up!
first-time winner name. I don't believe I've heard Charlie Tap. Anyways, Charlie, congratulations. You're our winner. Go ahead and email Ruby at Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. She'll send you a link to our Vikings Report prize vault where you can go ahead and pick one of the prize, and her and Drew will mail it out to you sometime this week.
I'd rather have Charlie Tap in there than Donatello. Charlie, call him. For Christ's sake.
All right, Vikings lose in the NFC wildcard round 31-24, finished 13-4 in your 2022 NFC North champs, but are facing a season with a lot of questions. Drew, give me your final thoughts and we'll wrap up and get out of here.
Great season. I'm happy. I mean, I'm bummed. I'm bummed that they lost today because I would like to have seen them catch fire. And I don't think San Francisco has better play calling than the Giants. So it would have been very interesting. But I'm happy with the season. I'm happy with everybody that tunes into all our live shows. I'm stoked that Chris Gates is here because I learn a lot from him. You're a great host. I think we had fun. We're going to continue with our studio shows. But the Vikings, it's going to be fun to watch the offseason, Ted, to see how this, this is Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell. They first full thing going here. So we'll see how they change. And the Vikings are back to being relevant, guys. And that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
All right, Chris.
I totally agree. I mean, this has been a really fun season, despite the way it came to an end. Doing these shows with you guys has been just a huge highlight. It's awesome every week, whether we win or lose. And I'm looking forward to what this team's going to do going forward. And yeah, I mean, that's about all I can say. It's I don't know how, like Drew said, I don't know how people could be disappointed with this season. I mean, sure that the ending sucked, but overall it was a pretty great year, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the season. I'm disappointed in the ending. People have been asking for a second spin of the wheel of Twins' destiny because it's our final live post-game show of the year. And because we are benevolent dictators, we will. So Ruby, pull the wheel back up. Let's do it again.
Wow, we are just going out on a limb tonight.
All right, here you go.
All right, one more prize winner for today.
What if Charlie Tap hits it? We're going to be accused of favoritism.
Nicholas Rousson.
Nicholas Rousson, congratulations, Nicholas.
Nicholas
ahead
has
and
been
Get
he's been a big
Ruby
follower.
Get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. Nick, the longtime listener to the show, like Drew said, we'll get a prize out to you as well. Look, I'm disappointed in the way the season ended. I'm pretty happy with the season overall, though. It's hard to be mad at 13-4 when most people thought 9-8 and possibly a wild card was about the best you could get. I think the Vikings are on the right track. They've got a lot of personnel decisions coming up, and it's going to be a minefield to tread. And if they can navigate that, I think they're going to come out stronger on the other side. But the NFC North is looking pretty tough next year with Detroit and Green Bay, but not Chicago. Go ahead, Drew.
Remember our last studio show? We did the Rocky. That was our theme for our movie.
Yeah.
Let's remember, Rocky didn't win that first match.
No, he didn't.
But Rocky 2, what happened?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Next year, Rocky 2, boys.
We'll see what happens.
So do we eventually get to the point where the Vikings end the Cold War in like Rocky IV or whatever? Because there were no Rocky movies after Rocky IV.
Was it 4 or 5? Yeah. The Ivan Drago.
There was no Rocky V. You're actually going to tell me there was a third Godfather movie. I'm not going to believe that either. But yeah.
If I could change, and if you could change, we could all change. Whatever.
It's been a great season. It's been fun. The Vikings got good games, and then we had Dusty Rhodes on with Chris that one week. It's been great. You guys are really fun to work with. I appreciate all that you do. You guys know football more than me, and I love it because I learned from you.
This is our last live show for a while. We'll probably do a couple in the off season as we get ready for free agency and the draft and all that good stuff. But look, Chris, Drew, and Ruby, it's been a lot of fun. We got another studio show coming up this week. We'll figure out what we're going to talk about now that the Vikings are out. But we'll have a studio show. We won't be back with a live show for a while, but we'll let you know when that happens. For Chris, for Drew, for Ruby, thanks so much for making us part of your Vikings world this year. I hope you stick with us through the offseason and next season. And we'll be back bigger and better than ever, just like the Minnesota Vikings. So for Drew, for Chris, for Ruby, thank you. SKOL Vikings, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Suck it, Dayball!